Hello, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today and to discuss what is Black Joy. In 2015, New Yorker Cleaver Cruz established the Black Joy Project, a digital and real-life movement to amplify Black joy and highlight all the vibrant, spontaneous, and profound ways Black people thrive regardless of the global circumstances. Today, we've got the privilege to discuss Black Joy with four members of our community. They will share their insights and reflections on what it means, what Black Joy means to each one of them. And we are all going to celebrate jointly the joy of being Black. So I'm going now to introduce you to the speakers, but before, I would like to remind you that you can post your questions clicking on the Q&A icon on the right-hand side of the screen so we can process and discuss your questions. So our first speaker is going to be Shanice Vincent. Shanice Vincent is a senior administrator in the School of English, but additionally and importantly, the co-founder of the community organization NextGen movement. This movement was developed after she and the two other founders organized the Nottingham's Black Lives Matter protest. After seeing the turnout, NextGen knew they had to continue their work in fighting the good fight. Working with other community organizations to provide a variety of educational workshops to the underprivileged youths in the Nottingham area, building a relationship with Nottinghamshire Police to tackle hate crimes and bias, stopping search, and collaborating with the Nottingham City Council to reform the curriculum, making it more inclusive. Shanice and NextGen hope to tackle systemic racism and be a voice for their hurt. You can keep up with NextGen on Instagram and Facebook. Our next speaker is going to be Serena Mitchell. Serena is a second-year economics BSc student here at the University of Nottingham. Beyond this, she holds the role of Black representative for the University of Nottingham students in the BAME Network, which entails promoting their interests and representation within the university. Being an avid consumer of social media, she's passionate about raising awareness of its negative impacts on self-image and confidence, and speaking about negative traditions which are perpetuated within the Black community. The next speaker will be Carol Green. Carol Green is an astrophysics PhD student here at the university, where her scientific research focuses on black holes and active galaxies. And I'm sure that Carol is very happy about the announcement of the Nobel Prize for Physics, or at least I hope so. Beyond this, she founded and currently works a social enterprise activist group called POC Squared. POC Squared works to remove the systemic biases that prevent people from marginalized backgrounds progressing into the higher paid stage of the STEM academia. As well as this, it works to decolonize the current STEM curriculums. Online, you can find POC Squared, or people call it Squared, on Twitter. And also, you can follow Carol on her personal Twitter account, This Is Me Online. Last but not least, we've got Lukeki Kaindama. Lukeki is an epidemiologist working public health. Her areas of expertise and interest are infectious disease, healthcare systems, and global health. She has also previously worked in the NHS and in the area of medical communications. She holds a MSc degree in biochemistry and genetics from the University of Nottingham, and has fond memories of the George Green Library. I wonder if they are that fond. I hope so. And also about her time living in London. As a female scientist, Lukeki is passionate about encouraging more girls to pursue STEM, get involved in career events in local schools in North London. She is passionate about Africa's sustainable social and economic development and has previously been involved in the non-governmental organization Diaspora for African Development. She is currently pursuing an MSc in Public Health at the London School of Hygiene, and Tropical Medicine. So as you can see, we've got a fantastic lineup spanning from University of Nottingham's employees, students, and alumni. And without much further ado, I'm going to ask Shanice to present to us and reflect on Black Joy.
So I'll just introduce myself once more. So as Maria said, I'm Shanice Vincent. So I work at the University of Nottingham, but I'm also a co-founder of NextGen movement, which is a millennial-driven movement focusing on fighting systemic racism and building barriers for the community. So Black Joy to me means being unapologetically Black. So being comfortable and authentic within yourself and about who you are as a person of Black descent. So I know that I'm not alone in feeling like an outcast, you know, if you're in a room full of white people or even other ethnicities. And, you know, there's been times in the past where I've felt like I've had to dial down myself a little bit just to fit in and not be judged or stereotyped. So with everything that's happened this year, it's taught me the real meaning of self-love as someone who is mixed with Black, and that there shouldn't be anything wrong with being who we are, whether we're seen as loud. That shouldn't be an issue in society. So I make it my duty to embrace my Blackness and as well as my Black brothers and sisters and completely empower them to be comfortable within themselves. The world often makes it feel like being Black's a crime, but it's actually a gift, and that's the kind of word that I look to spread, especially through NextGen movement as well. So as an activist and community organisation founder, I wanted to touch on the moments of Black joy that I've experienced since starting my journey in activism, and how it's made me feel. So it's important to identify the smallest moments of Black joy that have a direct correlation to who we are in the world. So I'll start with the Black Lives Matter protest that we did on the Forest Recreational Ground. Some of you might have attended it. That was back in June. So during the protest, it was so comforting to me to be surrounded by people who look like me, have had the same experiences as me, and can just generally relate to me. And just seeing them stand together and come together and standing in solidarity. Unfortunately, the circumstances obviously weren't the greatest, but it's times like that we really need to come together and embrace and support each other. So during the protest, we did an 8-minute silence and we all took the knee for George Floyd. And during that time, one of the members of the crowd actually burst into tears, and it just touched me in a way that was just crazy. And I felt so comfortable to just go over to her and just embrace her and give her a massive hug and just share that kind of pain with her. And the fact that as Black people, we can come together and do that, it doesn't matter if we know each other or not, it was just really touching to me. Like, it was such a sad moment, but there was some joy out of it, just of having that. It was almost like, felt like family. Another moment of experience of Black joy is when we're running the youth workshops. So NextGen movement run community workshops mainly for people from the Black community, but also other backgrounds. So it's those who are underprivileged and don't have the same access as maybe their white counterparts do. So we run some workshops like social media management, video editing and things like that. But before we started these workshops, we held a focus group for the youth, and so many young Black boys turned up from the community, and just told us what they wanted, and it was so nice to see, you know, not the typical, you know, community organizations who just run like football clubs and stuff, but they were coming to us and asking us to, you know, provide them with the facilities to gain these kind of skills. So from such a young age that they're looking to start, you know, a career path or gain certain skills was just so lovely to see. And then lastly is the fact that we work with so many other organisations that are run by Black men and women. So you've got Helping Kids Achieve, which is a Nottingham organisation. Breaking Bridges and Building Barriers, another Nottingham organisation. They do a lot of community outreach and workshops as well. So we came together in unity just to hold these kind of workshops. So it wasn't like loads of groups of people were doing the same thing, and we were all coming together for one cause, essentially. So they're just a few of the moments that I've personally experienced Black joy during my time, you know, as an activist in the community. So I'll pass it back to Maria now, and thanks for having me.
That's wonderful, so inspiring, Shanice. And we are going to continue this conversation, inviting Serena to join us and share her reflections on Black joy.
Hi everyone, I'm Serena Mitchell. I'm a second year economist. I'm also the Black representative, as you heard at the beginning. When I was asked what Black joy means to me, I thought it would be more beneficial to speak about what Black joy is as a collective, as part of the Black community, and how we can go about achieving that rather than what it means to me personally. And touching on what Shanice said at the beginning of her speech, I think that one of the most important things and one of the most important ways that we can achieve Black joy as a community is just by being comfortable in our own skin. I think given the rise of technology and the rapid consumption of social media, we as Black people see that we aren't as represented in the media as other racial groups. And this can lead to denial of culture and internalized and unconscious racism that we're not exactly aware of ourselves. But I think the way that we can push Black joy in ourselves and other Black people is that we must identify these harmful opinions that we have of ourselves. We must identify the fact that it's subconscious and we're not necessarily doing it on purpose. And once we've identified it, we can then go and deconstruct this, and we can then help other Black people to deconstruct it. I also think it's extremely important to embrace what makes you different, even to other Black people. Lots of stereotypes are pushed onto Black people as to what we should be like, as to how we should act. And it's important that we shouldn't conform to these stereotypes if we don't naturally fall into them, because these will make us unhappy. This behavior will make us unhappy, and therefore we won't be achieving Black joy as a community. And also, just lastly, on the topic of social media, I think it's important to acknowledge the impact that social media has on self-image and the impact that social media has on the way we view ourselves and our appearances. I wanted to talk about how the beauty standards, even though they are trends, beauty standards that is currently the trend is a Eurocentric beauty standard. And this is something that isn't easy for Black people to achieve. And this is something that affects both men and women and promotes self-image issues and such. But I think it's extremely important to understand that while the Eurocentric beauty standard that's currently in trend may be the norm, it isn't universal. It's not something that should be accepted. It's not something that we should try and achieve, because it's almost impossible for us to achieve, which is just linking back to how we achieve Black joy as a community by loving ourselves and being accepting of the way we are, the way we behave, and the way we look. The second thing I wanted to talk about is being Black and having Black joy in professional and educational spaces. And in these spaces, we can be severely underrepresented. I saw a statistic that said in 2018, so only 2 years ago, only 20% of students across the UK at universities made up BME cohorts. So that's not just Black people, that's ethnic minority groups as well. So it's more than likely you're going to feel uncomfortable with the lack of diversity and representation within the uni that you're at. And I was thinking that this figure is most likely to translate to the professional workplace, where 5% of top positions, such as managers and directors, are Black. So in professional and educational spaces, these are spaces of underrepresentation for us Black people, and these can then lead to negative emotions. But to pursue Black joy is to accept the fact that we have a right to be there as much as anyone else. I know Shanice was talking about this at the beginning of her speech, but it's extremely important for us to accept the fact that we work just as hard, if not harder, to achieve the same things as other racial groups. So therefore, we mustn't feel like we don't deserve to be there just because we don't feel represented. The final thing I wanted to talk to everyone about was to achieve Black joy as a community, because I've been talking about achieving Black joy within yourself mainly, but to achieve Black joy as a community, it's imperative for you to uplift other Black members of the community, to achieve joy as a community rather than inwardly. And the way that I do this is that I speak up against racial issues, and I assist my fellow Black people in identifying and deconstructing negative biases, things that, like I said before, are reinforced subconsciously. I also think it's important to deconstruct toxic traditions which are perpetuated within the Black community. I have been speaking a lot about racial friction between groups, but I also think there's a lot of friction within the Black community as we impose stereotypes on other Black people, enforcing the way we represent ourselves. And in order to achieve Black joy universally, Black joy within yourself, Black joy within the community, it's imperative that we accept all Black people, regardless of their background, upbringing, sexual orientation, appearance, gender, and occupation. We are all Black people. We need to celebrate the fact that we are Black rather than the differences that we have between us. Thank you. I'll pass back to Serena.
Wow, that was something, bringing aesthetics and social media to the core of this very exciting theme. Thank you very much, Serena. And now, without much further ado, I need to invite Carol, who's going to share, the perspectives on Black joy. Thank you. We can't listen.
Yes, I just remembered to unmute my mic. All right. So, hey everyone. So, like they said before, my name's Carel, and I'm an astrophysics PhD student here at the University of Nottingham. Or, I was before lockdown, and now I just, sit in my room, whatever. So, my take on Black joy is going to have a sort of very narrow focus, I guess, as I'm mostly going to be relating it to the activism work that I do in academia. But for me, a lot of what Black joy means is having the barriers that stops Black people from living an easy life removed. I'm a big fan of keeping it fake and being lazy. So the saying, you've got to work twice as hard to get half as much, is something I very much hate. It sort of goes against who I am on a fundamental level. So I personally run an activist group called POC Squared, that in a few words works to decolonize the mathematical sciences. But essentially what that means is that I work to remove the systematic racism that makes uni and then getting a job harder for Black people. I don't like having my work unfairly marked down due to the colour of my skin, as seen in the BME attainment gap, or finding it 10 times more difficult to get a job so I can pay my bills. What actually brings me joy is having all the mundane tasks of life be easy to complete, so then I can go away and do what I want with my own personal time. So through POC Squared, I work directly with unis to address the issues that affect Black people, instead of working 4 times as hard to get the same marks as an average white boy. And we do this to make the actual universities do the heavy lifting. So again, disadvantaged, dying Black students don't have to, in addition to working, 4 times as hard, do all of this extra activism work. And then as well as that, we try to make the higher sort of paid stages of academia, so PhD and above, essentially, more accessible to Black people. So if they wish to stay in the niche field that their degree was in and do research like I did, it's actually a viable option and not a pipe dream. We live in a gross society, and at the end of the day, people need money to survive. I'm thinking of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how the bottom level, food, water, shelter, before we get to all of the good stuff like communities and activism that makes life actually worth living, is achieved almost exclusively by money. And I know this is achievable because white men can navigate all of these different types of difficult spaces with relative ease. It's not due to random chance that all of the people with the guaranteed stable jobs and therefore the means to be happy all look the same. And it's not random chance that the people who don't look like that are systematically unhappy. So instead of working twice or 4 times as hard, I argue it's easier to achieve Black joy by making places of power change for the better, so we don't have to do all of the work and can actually have free time to be happy and spend as we wish.
That's fantastic, Carol. Thank you very, very much. And I'm with you. I'm a happier person when my bills are paid. And I think that, you know, we tend to romanticize too much, you know, living, and it goes beyond that. Well, last but not least, we've got our wonderful alumna to talk to us. Lukeki, would you mind sharing your views on this?
Thank you. So my fellow panelists have shared their experiences of Black joy in a variety of different and important contexts, and I'm sure what I will say will echo and build on their reflections. But again, these are my views and not reflective of my employer. Just need to get that out of the way initially. So 2020 has been a bit of an intense year. It started off with the usual New Year optimism, but quickly it became clear that we were and still are facing an unprecedented health threat, a global pandemic. In the midst of the pandemic, it started to become clear that people of Black and minority ethnic backgrounds were being disproportionately affected. And all the pandemic did was highlight the health disparities that we are familiar with already. Whilst all this was going on, the death of George Floyd at the hand of the police thrust racism and persistent oppression of Black people into the forefront in a way that it hadn't been done before and sparked global protests. The image of the policeman's knee on his neck resonated with so many Black people around the world because this is what they face in their day-to-day reality. Living in a country where you experience racism can feel suffocating, and seeing physically what happened to him just reminded people of what they experience emotionally and psychologically, whether in the education sector, work sector, healthcare, justice system, or even out and about and just living as normal individuals. And we know that there is evidence demonstrating that racism can affect mental health, especially leading to depression or prolonged grief, difficulty coping with and adapting to severe events. And there's also evidence that racism has an impact on your physical health, so things like high blood pressure. And that all sounds heavy, and it is, but that is the reality, unfortunately, that Black people face. So why joy? Well, joy is a sense of inner gladness, and it positively impacts our mental health. It is consistent and is cultivated internally, as some of the panelists have shared, especially around self-image and self-acceptance. It comes when you make peace with who you are, why you are, and how you are. And unlike happiness, which tends to be triggered externally and based on other people, things, and places, joy is internal. And it's not the absence of pain. However, it's the inner gladness we feel despite the pain. Joy is more beneficial, less transitory, and not tied to external circumstances. Now, I was thinking about that because then I want to reflect then on why Black joy, if we think about joy separate and then add the Black in front of it. And some people have said, why Black joy? What's the significance? Why can't it just be joy? And to a certain degree, I understand that question. Having had the privilege of growing up on the African continent for half my life before moving to the UK, there Black people were the majority. My teachers were Black, my doctors were Black, everywhere I went people were mainly Black. And yes, there were people of other races there, but Black people were the majority. And in that context, joy could exist as just being joy. Experiencing and choosing joy despite your circumstances was normal and not seen in the context of race. However, where we live, in the UK more specifically, Black joy needs to be emphasised. And this is when Black people are able to find and create spaces where they can experience joy in spite of the systematic racism they face on a daily basis. It is a revolutionary act and it's necessary for our survival and mental health. In a way, it doesn't make sense. How can you feel joy when you have the proverbial knee on your neck every day? But that is what Black people do in the face of white supremacy. It doesn't dismiss what we're going through, but it helps us cope. It helps us heal in a context where we're constantly critiqued, constantly affronted, and constantly undermined. It's about resilience and survival, about hope and about love, and it's defiant and necessary that in spite of everything going on, we find ways to remain joyful as Black people in the different spaces that we find ourselves in. So this brings me to how I find joy, regardless of the systematic racism I have faced in various contexts, from the workplace to education. And the first one is slightly different and out there, so some would say, is my faith. As a Christian, my faith is a source of joy, a source of hope and strength and peace. Knowing that God created me and I have intrinsic value despite what the world says is very, very important to me and gives me confidence in myself. And also joy is highly spoken about frequently, and the more we practice joy, the more joyful we become. Secondly, my community and my support system bring me joy. Spending time with my family and friends means I'm in a safe space and can take off the mask that I often have to wear outside. I can be in a place where I don't feel othered and can experience acceptance, love, and peace. As one of my friends stated, I don't feel like an alien because I'm around others like me. And the point about community has already been touched upon by my fellow panelists. Thirdly, and it's another point that I'm going to echo, is my culture. I take pride in having a close connection to my heritage. I'm proud to be Zambian, and I'm actively involved in the Zambian community in the UK, and doing my best to contribute to influencing policies affecting Zambians living in the UK and how we can then positively affect development in Zambia. And also I enjoy experiencing other cultures. Having friends from different countries in the Caribbean and in Africa means that we can share our culture and celebrate ourselves in the Western context. And fourthly, being part of the solution. This is the framework, a more practical framework that I have applied in my life in terms of how I can be part of the solution and propagate Black joy practically. So number one is paying it forward. Helping those I know walking through instances where they are facing racism at work or in a university context is important to me. Being able to share the experiences that I've had, encourage them and stand in solidarity with them while they walk through something that is very traumatic and very difficult. Also, leading a team of diverse female scientists, it's important for me to see other young Black scientists and be able to share my experiences of navigating the healthcare field. Not having seen many people like me ahead of me who I could model my career against means that it's important for me to take the time to sit with people, to discuss what I've done and share where I can so they can also excel because they are the future. Another way is being involved in recruitment where I can. Being involved in recruitment has opened my eyes to the biases sometimes that Black and other ethnic minorities face while trying to get into the world of work. And being on panel means that I can contribute to diversity and have a voice in there for people who look like me. And lastly, volunteering, making sure that I can go into schools and speak to young people about careers in STEM, particularly young girls in underperforming schools, and share that it can be possible for you to have a career in the scientific field, regardless of what you look like, regardless of where you come from. And that is a tangible thing to strive for. And I think following on from the Black Lives Matter movement, there is a need to invest in Black people. And by doing that, we are investing in Black joy of others, rather than investing in the Black pain and taking the power away from the Black pain that people experience. It's so important. I'm glad we've been able to highlight different aspects of it in our various speeches. But to echo what has been said already, Black joy starts with being comfortable in your own skin and being comfortable being Black. Thanks.
Lukeki, thank you so much. It's really, I think it was a lovely wrap up to what was a fantastic selection of speeches, and I'm really indebted to the four of you for this amazing opportunity, and I'm sure the audience, the people watching, they are as well. So as I will indulge myself just reflecting a little bit on what you've just said, the four of you. Black joy is, above all, an act of defiance, and I think that you all brought it, very, very clearly. In the middle of so much adversity, and and discomfort and otherness, being able to feel comfortable under your own skin, as was very beautifully said, is an act of defiance. It's going against our odds, and my generation is it's a joy for my generation to see young people like yourselves being so confident, defiant, and above all, joyful and happy. Happiness comes from the way we see each other, the way we can express our activism, the way we can help to build a community. From the practicalities of the day-to-day life, being able to live in a dignifying way, and also to explore the different aspects of our own personality. What we see with the Black, with the Black discourse is just like we are all one single entity, when actually we are a myriad of experiences, and we host inside ourselves a myriad of experiences. Each one of us contain multitudes. So I think it was really, really inspiring that you were able to bring, the multitude of experiences, of views, of insights into this conversation. I think that we start to have some questions here. So the first one, there's something that is not much a question, but an expression of joy. How she says, feeling so much Black joy listening to these speeches. I am here, trying to control myself. People that know Maria, she's a bit of an emotional beast. So it has not been very easy to keep hold of my emotions, and it's amazing. It's even if there were tears, there would be tears of Black joy. Vic, she's got a question for us. As a Black woman, I'm interested in getting your perspective on the stereotyping expectations you've experienced from others in the Black community, and how this enables or prevents you from being your authentic self. So I think that I'm going to invite each one of you to talk about that. I'm going to start with Shanice.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yes, I will repeat the question. As a Black woman, Vic is interested in getting your perspective on the stereotyping and expectations you've experienced from others in the Black community, and how this enables or prevents you from being your authentic self.
I don't think personally I've necessarily had any negative situation from the Black community. It's usually from, the white community or other ethnic minority communities. I guess it's a bit of a difficult one because I am mixed. Sometimes I can feel like I don't necessarily fit in either. So sometimes I can feel a bit in the middle. But personally, I've not really had a major situation where I felt stereotyped or like an outcast. When it comes to the Black community, I've always been truly embraced, and it's where I feel most comfortable.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Shanice. And Serena?
Sorry, my mic was muted. I have had a couple of experiences, or more than a couple of experiences, on stereotyping within the Black community. I think the most important experience, and the one that stayed with me the longest, is about the way that I speak. So in terms of like the Black community, the way we enforce stereotypes on each other, one of the stereotypes that seems to be enforced, or that I've experienced, is that Black people should speak a certain way. And if you speak a certain way that isn't the way that other Black people expect you to speak, you sound white. I'm sure many people have heard that like type of phrase before. I've been told a million times that I sound white when I speak, or that I sound rich or something, but I've been states as an ordinary Black person. So in terms of how this enables and or prevents me from being my authentic self, at some point, like, it becomes like you feel the pressure to change the way that you, or to change the way that I speak, or to change the way that you act in order to feel accepted by the people that are most like you. So that's one of the experiences I've had. Another one of the experiences is also some of my interests. I'm not exactly sure what the stereotype is for like listening to music or something, but I find that some of the music I listen to isn't what is expected of a Black person to listen to, etc. So it's these types of things that relate to your culture as a Black individual, that some members of the Black community will enforce on you and then make you feel bad if you don't conform to those stereotypes. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Serena, and I empathize so much with many things you've just said. And Carol, your views on this?
Okay, remember to unmute my mic this time. So I'm hearing an echo, is that? Okay, it's gone now. Yeah, so I don't know, in terms of stereotyping, I'm trying to think. I can't remember anything in particular other than, like, of course, I've heard the way you speak and the music you listen to and stuff like that. It's been a while because 2020 has just been too long, and I just yeah, I don't know, it's just I feel like I don't have this as much anymore because I don't talk to people who like that anymore. Like, I've had those experiences, and then, you know, I'm just like, damn, let me get some actual good friends, and so now things are nice to me. So I guess yeah, I don't know. I guess I do feel, I worry about it a bit when I go to, especially like, it happens so infrequently because, again, I'm in physics and it's just a nightmare. It's just me all the time as the only Black person. So I guess I do worry a little bit when I have, like, you know, events like these and things that are actually nice for once, about like stereotyping and making sure, like, oh, you know, are they gonna, you know, am I gonna feel okay? Am I still Black? What's going on? But yeah, like, it's been rough, but I think, much like anything, you know, I'm not going to keep hanging around those people who are forcing these really, like, gross and ugly expectations on me. And so now I'm actually a bit more happy than I was before.
That's so amazing, Carol. Can I ask you something? So as a physicist, so are you happy with the choice of the Nobel Prize? It's about black holes, and that's what you study. Sorry to jeopardize, but I think the audience is as curious as I am. I want to believe.
So I'll say, well, of course, because it's about black holes, I can't be that upset because black holes are cool and I love them. Yeah, very white, I will say. I'll say it again. But the fourth white woman, who is also just the fourth woman in general, got a Nobel Prize, so that's good. That's something. Yeah, just more white men that I've never heard of and don't care about, but the black holes are cool. So there you go.
I was waiting for this so much. Thank you. Lukeki, would you share with us your thoughts on this?
Yes, it's so interesting because I can relate to definitely the points of view that Karel and Serena have shared already. But from experiences from when I was younger, I think I alluded to in my speech that I moved to the UK when I was around the age of 14. So I have a very different experience. I remember moving here, people would say things about the way I speak and, you know, sounding white because I spoke well. And, you know, I think I'm grateful to my parents because they were very much like, how else do you want to sound? Like, do you not want to sound like you are educated and that you can speak well? And growing up in the context where Black people are the majority, me having interests was just me having interests. So I could listen to a variety of music, both in the Black context and outside. You know, I remember being like 11 and, you know, being a huge fan of Avril Lavigne at the time, but also at the same time being really into like hip hop and R&B, etc. And that could coexist, because I'm very passionate in the fact that Black people are not all the same. There's a variety. You don't have to be a certain thing to be Black, and that's what holds people back. And as long as you know what is important to you and who you want to be, when other Black people say things to you, you can be like, okay, so what? I'm a Black person. I go camping because I like camping. You know, I do other things. I go swimming because I like to swim. Whatever stereotypes you have for you, that's fine. But I know what I want in my life, and I know who I am, and I know what's important to me. And I'm not going to let me being Black stop me from experiencing the various things in this world that are important. And that's the energy that I carry when people, you know, I'm not going to pretend I've always been like this. There were some times where I kind of felt, oh, maybe I should speak a little bit in a certain way. I remember coming to university, and a lot of my friends were from London, and I wasn't from certain parts of London, and I, you know, my accent slightly changed because I was fitting in. After a while, I'm like, you know what? That's just not how I am. That's not my experience. My experience is not, I have a very different experience. And in my experience, Black people can do anything. And that's how I walk through life. I'm not going to limit myself because of someone else's limited view of what Black people can be and who they are.
That's it. That's it. Amazing. Thank you so much, Lukeki. And I think that's what all of you have, you know, you've just proved to the world and the audience in this context, that you can be who you want to be, either, you know, not taking notice like Shanice. She's totally oblivious. She doesn't even care if there's anyone that thinks that limits her stuff, or you know, just like Serena, just, you know, acknowledging, you know, doing the mindfulness exercise. I acknowledge and I don't care about it. Karel, you know, finding her crew, the people that she wants to share experiences and her life with. And Lukeki, really, you know, just unapologetically being who you want to be. And I love camping as well. I'm with you. I like camping and rambling, and, you know, and sometimes
so
makes me feel like the only Black person in the village, but it's okay. We can deal with it. We've got some more questions. So before, not a question, but, you know, another statement of encouragement and support. Not a question by Karen, but this was an amazing session. All of you expressed every ounce of what Black joy means to us. So yeah, there is a little question. How do you suggest we consistently choose Black joy in such oppressive spaces? So I'm going to do the round again, starting with Shanice.
I would just reiterate what I said in my talk. It's just being unapologetically who you are, embracing your Blackness instead of trying to, you know, sort of dilute it. Yeah, just being unapologetic. There's nothing wrong with being Black. There's nothing wrong with being who you think you should be as a Black person, and anyone's opinion should be completely irrelevant.
Thank you, Shanice. Short and sweet. Serena? Serena, would you share with us your views on this?
So I think the way we choose Black joy in oppressive spaces is firstly to acknowledge the fact that it's not always easy to be unapologetically yourself. We've been talking about like be yourself for a lot of the conversation we've been having today, but it's not always easy, especially if the place and space that you're taking up feels oppressive to you. But I also think that you need to consistently remind yourself that you're not there to impress anyone. Like, you're actually not there to impress anyone apart from yourself. If what you're doing is making you happy, like, it's actually no one else's business. And if they have something negative to say, as easy as it might be to say and as hard as it might be to do, sometimes you just have to, like, most of the time you just have to ignore it unless it's like completely out of order. But you're not there to impress anyone, so I think that's the way you choose Black joy, is by choosing yourself, because we're Black and we should unapologetically be Black. So
thank you very much, Serena.
okay.
Karel?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I essentially agree with everything that everyone said. Sorry, again, I hear an echo. What's going on?
Yes, there is a little bit of echo.
Okay.
But
Okay, it's gone. Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, first of all, I agree with everything that everyone said, especially you, Serena, and how it's not always easy. But also, I did want to say that you kind of like don't have a choice. Like, you're always going to be like Black or whatever your race is that isn't white. They don't get a voice here. And you have to, like, no matter what you do, like, that's obviously not going to change. So you might as well just be like happy out of spite, right? And it's just like, you know, whatever you do, you're gonna, if somebody decides to be racist or whatever, they're gonna decide to be racist. Like, that's out of your control. So you might as well just like do what you want, because like no matter where you go, there's a chance of that happening anyway. So like don't worry about it too much, because you'll be fine, is my answer to that.
fantastic. Thank you, Carol. Lukeki?
I'm going to approach from two angles. The first, I think, I echo everything that everyone said. I'll just say being intentional about prioritizing experiencing Black joy and making sure that there are spaces and avenues where you can go and find solace and be able to just shake the pressures of the world off your shoulders. I think that is very important. If that is being involved in activism or, you know, doing more self-care, you have to intentionally cultivate it. It's not something that you can just feel, especially when you are in oppressive spaces. You have to be intentional about doing that. And also one that's slightly different is also standing up for yourself. I think when you are in an oppressive space, and if people are making you feel less than, it is within your rights to stand up for yourself. And there are various ways that you can do this. And then there are various people who can help you, you know, in a professional space, in an education space. But I think joy also comes from saying, no, actually, you can't treat me this way. And this is not right. And I know when I face certain situations, that has brought me joy, when I can be like, actually, no, I'm going to speak up. I'm going to use my voice and say this isn't right in whatever space that is. So those are my two reflections.
Thank you very, very much. Yes, that's important reflections. We've got more questions, so let's soldier on. Eli said, a couple of speakers spoke about going above and beyond and doing amazing community and activism work, which I commend you for. However, I think tackling systemic racism often falls on the shoulders of our Black colleagues, but I think it's so crucial that everyone plays a part in this work. How do we get everyone involved in anti-racism? I think that's up your street, Shanice.
Yeah, so it's something that's kind of come naturally since starting NextGen movement. And I think because we started it at such an emotional time during a pandemic, and then the George Floyd thing happened as well, a lot of places felt obligated to, you know, care or pretend to care for a bit at least. So we kind of took advantage of that, and you know, most of them reached out to us, but it was all about holding them accountable. So for example, Nottingham City Council reached out to us and they wanted to take a few pictures with, you know, the Black Lives Matter banner. And, you know, that's tokenistic to me. That's not going to change anything. So yeah, we arranged meetings with the head of the council and some of the councillors, and we've also built a network with the councillors who are from the Black and other minority ethnic backgrounds. So there's a few of them in the council, still not enough, but there's a few. And because we've built that partnership, it's quite easy for us to, you know, reach out to members of the City Council who can really actually make change. Also, Nottingham City Council, Nottinghamshire Police, surprisingly enough, have been absolutely amazing with working with us. it was shocking to me. But yeah, they've been great. We're looking at reforming some of the stop and search processes and also hate crime processes. So yeah, it's all about accountability, demanding time where time is needed. You know, if you need to make them feel guilty about it, then do it. I do it. I don't care. You know, it's time for them to step up at the end of the day. You know, it's been going on long enough, and I think demanding is one of the main things. Sorry, I'm blabbering on a little bit.
No, not at all.
But yeah, just being demanding with it and not taking no for an answer. Even if you have to send 50 emails, you have to send 50 emails. If you have to knock on the door 100 times, you have to knock on their door 100 times. But it's the only way that they're going to actually pay attention, and some of them will actually take accountability. So yeah.
Thanks, Shanice. I'm just going to follow up with you a little bit more, because there is, Eli raised an important point, that is, you know, it's expected from us to do always more. So do you think that this hard work at this stage is to take the balance in the future? Do you see yourself, or you know, the community doing less because everybody's going to share the load?
Yeah, I think personally for me and for NextGen, we'll always take a high amount of accountability for making change when it comes to this. Just as, you know, Black people and people of Black descent, you know, it's what we want, so we're going to fight for it. But realistically, you know, white people need to help us. It's all about allyship at the end of the day, and, you know, it's time.
Thank you so much, Shanice. Serena?
I think it's important I understand that it's a fight that everyone needs to take part in, but I think it's also important to just ensure that you're doing your own part. And it doesn't have to be on a really big level. It doesn't have to be something that, it doesn't have to be a big event that you hold. It doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be on a micro level as well. If you have like any family members that have certain biases and have certain racial views, then you can try your hardest in trying to deconstruct those on a smaller level, because every contribution will make a difference no matter how small it is. So I think it's just very important. Of course, it's a fight that everyone needs to have. Of course, like allyship, as Shanice said, is very important, and white people do need to help us because they are the biggest racial group in the UK, and so therefore we're not going to win the fight without them helping us. But I feel like it's very important that you do your own part as well.
Thank you so much, Serena. Carol?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that again, the echo, she follows me.
Serena is going to mute. It's going to be fine.
It's fine. Yeah, I just wanted to say, so I've had like personal experiences with a lot of work being put on my shoulders, especially right at the beginning before I was like well informed, because, you know, Black people aren't born well informed. We have to learn like everyone else. I'm not bitter, and yeah, I've had a lot of, especially in I'm just going to call them my old uni, because I didn't do my undergrad or masters at Nottingham. I did them at a uni in London, and it was like very tokenistic, and they were just like, yes, you go ahead, do what you want, you can do all of these things, you guys can do it, and then like went back to their offices and did nothing, and as far as I know, they are still trash. But I think a really important thing is reminding people of like where they are. So the point about like a lot of activism work is that like Black people aren't where they should be in proportion to the amount of work that they do, but these people in positions are. And when I started, you know, realizing what was happening to me and stuff like that, I started going to these places and just being like, well, because I do a lot of work in academia, I'd be like, okay, you're the lecturers, you're the heads of schools, like you guys do this, because I'm literally a PhD student. And if you like remind them of that, as opposed to being like, yeah, we're an activist group, but we just started, you know, we have a website and a Twitter, you guys actually own the premises or whatever, then that helps stop the work being put on your shoulders. And then just to essentially like not offer to do anything. I've stopped offering to do things, and it's been great, because they will just, again, if they can go the token route and have you, and, you know, do as little as possible, they literally will. So like you know, remind people of their job, because, you know, if you want that paycheck, if you want to be the head of something, then you have to deal with it. If you don't want to deal with it, don't have the job, give it to me and I'll deal with it and take the money. Like, so that's what I do a lot.
Carol, I'm going to start taking lessons with you. You know, I'm going to pay you to be my coach. Thank you. Lukeki, please.
Just to echo what everyone said, I think it's important to start where you are and your sphere of influence. And if there are people who you can educate and have conversations with, I think it's helpful to do that in a non, let's say, violent way. You can actually reason with people and follow things to their logical conclusion and say, is this right? You know, is the treatment of people in this way okay? And that can make a massive impact, because there is already buy-in, because you know the people within the sphere of your influence. And then I think from a more professional point of view, getting involved in certain committees at work, or maybe like Carol said, in institutions that you're at, to put the pressure on the organization to recognize that they have members of staff who are different, and that doesn't equate being treated in the wrong way, and they should also make the space open and inclusive for those members who work for them. So I think that is really important too.
Thank you very much, Lukeki. And I think that, you know, this question is connected to the next one from Bax that I'm going to read in a second. We know that the Black community, you know, if you think about the whole UK, you know, we are around, depending on the statistics, anything between 3 and 5% of the population. And we are seeing now a huge backlash from some sectors of the media and some individuals, and questioning the importance of, you know, the Black History Month, and, you know, engagement of institutions and businesses with the Black Lives Matter cause. So I think that there is a lot of work that, as was mentioned before, that can be done, you know, with your neighbors, you know, colleagues, maybe even friends, on understanding what it brings. You know, I was telling in another event that I took part yesterday that my grandma, no, a 92-year-old Brazilian person, she's in awe, just like, you know, a big part of the world, because the United Kingdom or Great Britain was seen as the empire where the sun never sets. So what we see today in the world is the reflection of, you know, a colonial rollout of the United Kingdom throughout the world. And in a way or the other, you know, all of us here with our very different heritages, our lives were somehow impacted by this imperialistic project. So it's very odd to think that some people might think that we don't, you know, the Black History Month, with all the Black history that we know really well, and we don't need to repeat during this event that is on Black Joy, why it should not be recognized, isn't it? It's very, so I think that's why there is a big push to increase teaching Black history in the schools, because we want to believe that people are not fascists, they are just not very well educated. However, when it comes to certain people, particularly, you know, actors turning politicians that are now trying to make some kind of success, saying outrageous things, we need to think where, you know, if it's ignorance indeed. Okay, round of the day done. And now we are going for Beck's question. Is it possible for Black people to feel comfortable enough around people who don't like us, who don't look like us? Shanice.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Is it possible for Black people to feel comfortable enough around people who don't look like us?
I don't think until society changes the way that they view Black people, that's going to be fully possible. You know, we can decide to be comfortable around it. Personally, I'm very comfortable around people who don't look like me now, but I didn't used to be at all. But you know, even though I'm comfortable, there's been situations where, you know, I've seen certain looks, or I've got certain vibes, and people made me feel a certain way, you know, because I'm the outcast, the one who looks different. So until society changes and doesn't, you know, have these stereotypes and negative thoughts and feelings about Black people just because they're Black, I don't think it's going to be fully possible to be completely 100% comfortable in society as a Black person.
Thank you very much, Shanice. Serena?
I think it's absolutely like possible to feel comfortable around people that don't look like us. Like Shanice was saying, I think there's a certain extent to which we can feel comfortable. I think it's possible to improve how comfortable we feel through like educating white people and people of other racial groups on what they may be doing that's making us feel uncomfortable. But you can educate them as much as you want. I feel like there's a certain level to which we're not going to feel comfortable beyond, because the people just don't look like us, and that's okay, because that's the fact of the matter. That's what the situation is like with us at the moment. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Serena. Carol?
Yeah, I don't know. This is a tricky question, and I'm sure this person didn't like write in this way, but it does feel a bit like blamey, and it's just like, you know, but you don't choose how you feel, right? You respond to stimuli, and I will stop feeling uncomfortable when people stop killing Black people. So like, how about that? How about stop moaning about people being uncomfortable and start treating us better and see how things change? So yeah, you know, like, you know, I'm not gonna, you know, I literally can't, if I feel uncomfortable, it's like, it's a chemical reaction. I'm not gonna stop feeling uncomfortable until people stop making us feel uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yep, that's it. Lukeki, please.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I agree with everything everyone has said. And one thing I want to say is, yes, it's possible to feel comfortable with people who look nothing like you. And the reality is that we are the minority in this context. So more likely than not, we might be the only people in certain spaces. And that's okay. I think walking into these spaces and knowing I deserve to be here, I'm qualified, and I'm worthy of the space that I'm holding, is what helps you feel confident and comfortable. You know, when I go into certain spaces, sometimes I am the only Black face in this room and people are listening to me, or even just I'm listening to other people, and I have to remind myself, yeah, I deserve to be here. I have something valid to say, and if anyone makes me feel uncomfortable, I will kind of match that energy and I'll call it out if necessary. I think there's wisdom in how you do certain things, but I think you can feel comfortable knowing who you are and that you deserve to be there just as much as everybody else. And if someone makes you feel uncomfortable, then you can check it. Like Carol said, that's a stimuli you are receiving to, and you can respond to it.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with what each one of you said about it. Yeah, you know, stop trying to kill us, that we are going to feel much better. Interestingly, a few months ago, I was reading this article about this African-American academic that has been living in Japan for 30 years. And he said that, you know, it was the first time that he could be himself. That, you know, imagine a Black man in Japan, that you don't have many of them, a Black man in a Japanese university, even less. And he said that he never felt so comfortable. So the lack of comfort, it has nothing to do with the numbers, but it has to do with the way you are treated, the way certain sectors of the society receives us. So it's important because we experience the same thing from places where we are 3% of the population, like UK, where you're 13% of the population, like US, where you're 56% of the population, like my birth country, that is Brazil. So the amount, the proportion of Black people in the society is not what determines the way they are treated. It's the institutional racism that triggers this chemical reaction, as was said. So, and I hope that it brings, it's useful for Blacks and other people watching it now. So we've got some other questions here. What one piece of advice would you give your 13-year-old self in relation to this subject? Shanice.
My 13-year-old self, I would tell her to stop caring about what other people think. I would tell her to find some friends who don't treat her like she's different just because she looks different. I would tell her to love her big lips and her big nose and embrace it. I would tell her to not touch her natural hair with straighteners or relaxers or cut it off. Leave your curls and look after them. Oh, I wish I could go back and tell her that. I would tell her to fully embrace who she is.
Well, that's so beautiful. Thank you, Shanice. Serena?
I would say stop listening to social media as much. Stop allowing it to dictate how you feel in terms of what you should look like, how you should act. Also, find some better friends. Don't listen to the people that are telling you that you should act a certain way in order to be Black, and also uphold that expectation that other Black people have of you. I would tell her to embrace her intelligence and the way she speaks, and don't try and dumb herself down to fit in with other Black people, because doing that is not going to help yourself. It's just going to be, it's not going to help yourself and or your future. And I would also tell her to stop straightening her hair as well.
Thank you so much, Serena. Thank you. Carol?
So I'm going to be the opposite and say that I was right about everything, because I didn't straighten my hair, which I'm happy about. But also on top of that, I was like thinking back, I used to really hate what I now know is gaslighting, which I didn't know when I was younger. So like people would do bad stuff to me or Black people in general, and I get really angry when Black people are like, oh, I forgive them, it's the right thing to do to forgive them. And I was like, no, you should fight them, you should beat them up. And I used to do that, and it was great, and it's like the best thing that I've ever done. And I look back on those memories with fondness. So, and yeah, and it turns out that I was right, because it was literal gaslighting and it was just awful. So yeah, be more like me. And
fantastic. That's good. That's wonderful. Thank you, Carol. Lukeki.
I think I would say that to her that she's worthy. She is worthy to be in who she is, and she shouldn't feel afraid to like the things she likes and be proud of who she is as a Black person, as a Black woman, as in spite of the racism that she might experience, or the colorism that she might experience, that she is beautiful and she's intelligent and she will go on to do big things. And when she does face instances of racism or oppression, she should just remember that it's not her. You know, it's not something that she has done. It's something that other people are imparting on her, and she will then go on to excel and be amazing.
Oh, that's so lovely. There's a lot of self-love here, isn't it? It's a time traveling self-love, and it's wonderful. We've got more questions. I'm not sure if this is the last one, but it's the last one I can see. That is, do you see Black joy as a force for healing? Shanice?
Yeah, I do see it as one of the forms of healing, definitely. once you truly embrace it and, you know, are joyful about being Black, then that's one step in the right direction into, you know, feeling more like who you actually are as a person. So yeah, I think it's one of many, definitely.
Thank you very much, Shanice. Serena?
I think Black joy can be a force for healing, but it can also be a force for division as well. In terms of like it being a force for healing, if the Black community can find Black joy within themselves and promote it within other Black people as well, then we can become really strong, like together as Black people. And in terms of it being a force for healing, like if we're strong within ourselves and our community, then that can also pass on to other communities and other racial groups, and it can inspire others and promote positivity. But also, I think it can also be a sense for division, because if we're very strong in who we are and like what we're like as Black people, and we completely cast aside the stereotypes that have been assigned to us by other racial groups, then this can be seen as a form of perhaps rebellion, perhaps of friction, and that may not be liked by certain types of people, not the good types of people. But so I think it's definitely a force for healing among people that want healing, among people that want positivity, among all types of racial groups, but I don't think it's always going to be a force for healing, especially if we're strong together, which is what some people don't want us to be.
Thank you so much, Serena. Carol?
I think I see Black joy as maybe more of a sign of healing, and in the idea that like actual true Black joy would be like my socialist utopia that doesn't exist right now. But like if we could all, you know, actually be happy, not have to, because like the ideal, right, is that like we wouldn't have to do activism work because things would just be equal, right? So like if, I want to say if Black joy existed, because, you know, it exists despite the bad, but if the bad didn't exist, so Black people could just enjoy, then I'd see it as like a sign of healing. But until that happens, then we're just gonna have to like keep fighting, I guess.
Yeah, that's a very interesting angle. Thank you, Carol. Lukeki?
Yeah, I think it can be one of many forces of healing. I think one thing we know is that racism does affect people's mental health, and it can take people a long time to recover from it, you know, and being and experiencing Black joy, especially in community, is important, because there is a healing that comes from us sharing our stories, from us telling and standing with each other and having that safe space, especially when there's solidarity and unity. It can help people to be able to continue on and continue the fight that's necessary. So I think it can be one of the forces for healing, and it's sad that, you know, it has to be quite in that sense, but I think it's also a good thing because we have that. Imagine if we didn't have that. And you know, it reminds me of that quote that says they buried us and they didn't know we were seeds. You know, that continual resilience to you know, despite what's happening, progress on. So
that's fantastic. Thank you very much, Lukeki, and thank you all of you for thinking beyond what is out there about Black joy, and you know, all the dimensions of Black joy. And you know, when Lukeki mentioned they buried us and they didn't know we were seeds, makes me think of another quote that I don't know if it's by her, but it was the first time I've heard Ava DuVernay, the filmmaker, that we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. We were not supposed to, the world was not designed for us to be having this conversation in higher education, in a university, using this platform. So I think that, and as the ancient in the room, you know, you are, you know, because you all could be my children, I've got a daughter that is, you know, around your age. So you are my wildest dream. And before I start crying, I'm going to follow up with Kathy's question. What are your hopes for the next generation? And what can we as a community, as parents, teachers, and wider society do to help make these a reality? So yeah, I'm sorry, Shanice. I'm glad that, you know, I'm going to say thanks to the people behind the scenes, but now I need to mention Jeremy because he realized that I was a bit wobbly. Let's give Maria a helping hand.
So my hope for the next generation is that they definitely continue in the current direction that they're going in. I think they are the future 100%. I thought my generation was going to be the future, but we were the middleman. But yeah, they're definitely, they're so outspoken and unapologetic about who they are. You know, no matter what community they're from, whether they're Black, whether they're from their LGBT plus community, you know, and they call out things that are wrong, like the whole situation with the election in America. And I think there was loads of the Gen Z generation, they like booked out loads of tickets for a Donald Trump rally and didn't turn up, and it was just like empty. Like, I just think that's amazing. I just think do that again, do more of that. So yeah, I just hope that they continue the way that they're going, and I hope that they get to experience a better quality of life than you know, me and my elders have. And I think as, you know, teachers, parents, colleagues and whatnot, I think we just need to support them in, you know, being outspoken and being who they are, and just let them take the forefront. Thank you
so much, Shanice. That's beautiful. Thank you. Serena.
So Shanice was just talking about my generation, looking up the seats. But in terms of what I would want to see in the next generation, I'd want to see more of that. Specifically, I'd want to see a whole lot more Black women in positions of power, like just Black people in general, but specifically Black women. I'm sick and tired of seeing Black women not protected by both men and other Black men. I feel like we need to protect Black women as a community of Black people. So I definitely want to see more Black women appreciation, and I definitely want to see more Black people rise to the top of a structure that oppresses them in the first place. That would be absolutely lovely to see, and to obviously continue doing more things like Shanice just mentioned. That's really funny. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Serena. Carol?
Yeah, I think I said, like I said in like the previous question, like my ideal would be that all of our activism works and finishes, so then the next gen could just be happy like we wish we were. I think that's like my ideal. Again, more about Black women, more about just intersectional people who live on the intersection in general. Like you said, I've seen a lot of like anti-Blackness and colorism from all kinds of people, including Black men, so I don't trust them, and that's that. And I also think in terms of what we can do as a community and stuff like that is like not letting the bad people get into positions of power. I think like, I know there's the idea that you have to, you know, always hear both sides of the story, and that in itself is not true and is just like a gaslighty lie. If people are being bad and are, you know, oppressing another group of people, then I know it sounds weird that you need to oppress them, but also you need to oppress them. Like, they shouldn't even, it shouldn't even be like taken as seriousness. They should just be shamed until they're good people, right, before they get a chance to become president of the United States, maybe. So I think we should just like stop listening to the Tories and just ignore them and not let people become Tories. Like, I think that, you know, stuff like that is what should actually be happening. I'm gonna stop.
Thank you so much, Carol. You know, that's a free and safe space to share everything you want to. And we've got Lukeki here already with us.
Yes, well, for me, from my perspective, I just would want to build on the work that everyone has been doing in their various spheres. I would hope that they wouldn't go through some of the experiences that I have gone through and that people I know have gone through, and that they're able to be recognized as valued members of society and worthy to exist and not to feel just anxiety about living and experiencing life. And I think in terms of what we can do as communities, parents, teachers, and wider society, one of the things that's important to me is education. You know, being involved, you know, there's evidence that shows the start you have in life impacts the outcome. So rallying around our kids in schools, making sure that we're supporting them, making sure that we're engaged in the curriculum that they're being taught, calling out when they're being profiled and stereotyped and pulled out of classes because they're disruptive when they might have other needs. You know, I think there are ways that as a parent you can do that. There are ways as a normal member of society by getting involved in schools and being governors, etc. And also just helping them so that when they get to the place that they are, it's not an amazing thing. You know, it's a normal thing to be in that space for them to achieve the things that they can achieve because of who they are. They shouldn't just be one, you know, and they shouldn't think that that's too much for me. No, they can do it. And I hope that the people coming behind us can run further than we have and take advantage of the walls that we've knocked down.
Fantastic. How amazing. And I think that we are starting to bring it to a close. So if you want just a 30-second, 10-word sentence that you want to leave for the audience, really quickly, Shanice.
Don't know what to say. Just embrace who you are unapologetically.
Brilliant. Serena.
I think it's important for you to work hard, no matter like what your background, even if you're not Black, just work hard in deconstructing racial biases, because then we can make the world of tomorrow, a better place.
Karel?
I'm just going to say that you should just do what you want and we should guillotine the rich.
And Lukeki.
I would say something slightly cliche, which is be the change. That we are all in spheres that we can have an impact in. And also thank you to the people involved in the EDI space before us who have been knocking down the walls so that we could come through and we could stand on their shoulders. I'm so grateful for that. And we can then also do the same for those coming afterwards.
That's so amazing. So there's no cliche here, Lukeki, and you know, thank you all very, very much. And I would like to share with the world that this moment here was very much championed by our Vice Chancellor, Shira West, and our Pro Vice Chancellor for EDI and People, Sarah Sharples. But there is the people that really made, you know, that are making this Black History Month amazing and made this very moment possible. And I'm here to embarrass all of them. So I will start with Emma Hatfield-Hudson, Esther Mukuka, Rachel Green, Jeremy Koshua, the man behind the scenes, the man that made us here, you know, live. We've got many other people that are not involved in this event today, but in the conception of the Black History Month 2020. So I would like also to express our gratitude to Professor Mal Treshe Kabash and Professor Rahila Khan. So my heart bursts in Black joy. Thank you so much for making this possible. And obviously, we need to give a very special thank you to the amazing speakers that made this memorable moment. So yeah, thank you very much, and may we all depart in black joy. See you soon.